Today I'm going to make up a batch of what I call Larry's bathwater. I know, an interesting name, huh? Actually, it's just a regular old pin wash or a sludge wash, whatever you want to call it. It's a panel line wash. But the reason we call it Larry's bathwater is, well, about 12 years ago, a friend and myself were mixing up a batch of this stuff. And we said, hey, that looks like Larry's bathwater. And what we meant by that was we had a friend named Larry. And bless his heart, he's a great guy, but man, his feet stink. And we were thinking that, well, this is probably what his bathwater looks like after he's had a bath. So Larry, I'm sorry, bro, but you know, this is how it is. So when you hear me talk about Larry's bathwater, I can use it as a wash or I can use it as a filter. And we'll go over how to do both of those at one point in time. But first, let's look at how do I mix this stuff up. So I've got some dish soap, Joy or whatever works well, okay? And then I've got some water. Just distilled water would be the best, but I don't have any of that today, so I'm using tap water. And then what used to be really good was, it was a grimy black, and I believe it was Floquil that made it, or well, anyway, the water-based version. And that stuff was great. It was the greatest wash ever. However, can't get that stuff anymore. So I tried a bunch of different things, and I haven't got anything to work real well until, well, Mission Models to the rescue. I'm going to use their black primer, and guess what? This stuff works awesome as a wash. So here's the dimensions. I am going to take some water, and I'm going to try to put 5 drops of water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 parts water. Empty that out. I'm going to put 3 parts dish soap. And the reason I'm putting so much dish soap is so that it's easy to take off of the model after we've put Future on it. We've got it gloss coated, and we're using this to fill just panel lines. Well, it's a lot easier to take off of the panels themselves if I have a lot of dish soap in here. So I'm going to put 3 drops of dish soap. So that was 5 water, 3 dish soap, 1, 2, 3. Okay, nice and goopy. And then I'm going to put 2 drops of the Mission Models paint in here. 1, 2. Now, I don't want to shake this up, because if I shake this stuff up, it's going to be so foamy and nasty, I'm not going to be able to use it for a while. But what I am going to do is I'm going to stir it. I'm going to mix it up real good. Okay. I'm going to show you on this here Mustang body that I've got. What we're going to do is we're going to take this. It's already been gloss coated. It's a nice, beautiful, glossy paint. And I'm going to use this on the trunk lid. You see how this trunk lid is? Well, I'm just going to put it right on in there. And we're going to let it soak into that, into those lines. I'm going to come back in a few minutes after it's dried. I really like to use a Q-tip to remove it, but you could use, well, you could use a napkin, you could use all sorts of things, but I really prefer the using a Q-tip or something similar to that to get that out of there. Places like this, right here, it works really good for highlighting those vents. Now, if it works this good on this, imagine what it looks like on your armor. Then I'm also going to do the door, because nobody ever enhances their door. Well, I don't want to say nobody ever, but usually it's not something most modelers do. They don't think about that. Wipe some of that off right now. Okay. And that's what the door looks like, enhanced. And this is without. And there we are for the vents. Like I said, this stuff works great on armor. We'll go over another piece one of these days on the difference between a filter and a wash. Some people change their paint to do that. I don't. But this works really well for me, and I hope that it works really well for you. Let me know in the comments section if you like it or not. Now the wash has had a few minutes to dry, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a regular old Q-tip. I don't know what brand it really is, but we call them Q-tips. Anyway, I'm going to dip it in some water. I'm going to squeeze some of that water out. I don't want it to be drippy wet, but what I'm going to do, take this, and I'm going to go over. I'm not going to get down inside of the panel line. I'm just going to go along the panel where there's some of that paint that's left over and dried. I'm going to do the same thing right here. I'm going to go over this. Just lightly, gently rub it. And you see here, here's my door. And I'm going to remove all that excess on there, leaving a really nice panel. I should say panel line. Oh, we got to touch this up a little bit. The beauty of it is, if I need to add a little bit more, I can add a little bit more. So this evening, I would like to demonstrate what I perceive as the difference is between a wash and a filter. And all I really ever use is my Larry's bathwater, which is what I use for pin washes and whatnot. It's an acrylic. Yes, I can mix up an oil base, and I've used that from time to time, but I really like to use this acrylic pin wash. So I'm going to start out. These two Sherman turrets are almost identical. They are painted exactly the same color. However, this one here, I have given it a coat of Pledge Floor Care, or Future as many of you know it. The only difference is you can see I've got guards here on the periscopes, and on this one I have one of the hatches open. Other than that, they're painted exactly the same color. And I did put a different gun tube here, and that's for a different reason that is irrelevant to what we're talking about tonight. So, to do a pin wash, what I do, or a panel line wash, is I will spray Future. And the reason I do that is I do not want to make the color itself, the olive drab color, or whatever color it is I'm using, I don't want to make it darker necessarily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some of my pin wash, and I'm going to put it into the cracks and the crevices. What the Future will allow me to do is to come back with a Q-tip and remove any of the wash that is on the particular panel or a particular surface that I don't necessarily want it. And that's because on the wash that I use, it has quite a bit of dish detergent in it. And all I want to do here is accent my panel lines. I want to accent some of these type of surfaces here. On the back side, the stamping for the turret, I'm going to put some dark wash in there and let it sit. And then of course for the door here on the pistol port, okay, and I'm going to let that sit in there. Okay, that is what I consider a panel line wash. And you might have seen in some of my other videos how I've done this. I use it on my cars, I use it on my aircraft, I use it on pretty much everything. Now, for me, what a filter is, it is a color used to darken, lighten, just change whatever color I've already got. So keep in mind, these are both sprayed the exact same color of olive drab. And what it is, it's a Tamiya olive drab that's been lightened up with a dark yellow. But I'm going to darken this by giving it an overall wash or a filtering effect. And I'm going to cover everything. Oh, looks kind of dark, doesn't it? And And I'm going to use plenty of it because I want it to get down into all of the recessed areas. But you notice that this one, I didn't put any future on it. And that's because I want to darken the actual paint. I want this filter to filter the actual color of the paint. Now we'll come back here in a few minutes and see what they look like when it's dry. So here is our turrets now that they are dry. You can see that most of that filter, that's why I like to put it on a napkin or paper towel or something. You can see most of it soaked off, but you can also see the difference in the color, that now it is definitely darker than when we started. So the filters do work. They do a great job of changing the tone of your particular color. Now, by contrast, you can see here on the barrel where there's an area that I didn't put any filter and some that I did. So it makes a very slight difference. Again, you can use a white, you could use a tan, you could use a brown. There's all sorts of filters that you can use. And here for our wash, well, you can see that it worked pretty good on getting into most areas. I might need to remove it from some. Again, with just a damp Q-tip, it will take it off of the areas that I don't really want it. But for the most part, including there, hey, that turned out pretty good. Now if I dry brush that, that's going to pop right out. It's going to look great. We'll see how that turned out on that turret as well. All right, so there you have it. The difference between a filter and a wash in my world.